why we provide different internet solutions for your different needs. SLT Fiber, 4G and ADSL. SLT Broadband, just the way you want it.
Tonight, clarifying the Constitution. Prime Minister says controversial statements made over the Constitution could spark division. Flying on a loss. Union charge that 4 million rupees is spent daily to maintain a Sri Lankan aircraft that is not in operation. On the record, IGP PUJITH JAYASUNDARA gives voice samples to government analyst over VIP assassination plot. Another warning. Donald Trump warns Turkey of economic devastation if Kurdish forces attacked. That story and more tonight, Monday, January 14, 2019.
මේ උත්සව සමයේ ස්මාර්ට් ඇන්ඩ්‍රොයිඩ් තාක්ෂණයෙන් එන සිංගර් විස්ටා TV එකක් මිලදී ගන්නා ඔබට හිත පිරෙන්න වාසි රැසක් ඕනෑම සිංගර් ප්‍රදර්ශනාගාරයකින්.
From Ada Derana, this is Ada Derana First at 9 with Ndivari Amuata and Mahesh Jani. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and a very warm welcome to the English service of Ada Derana 24. Good evening, Mahesh.
Good evening, Indivari. How was your weekend?
Wonderful. I had a great weekend. Looking forward to another 5 days, including today, of bringing you Ada Derana 24, First at 9 news service to your home every night.
Indeed, we have lots of stories to report to you tonight. We start off with whether there is a new constitution or no
not. I think everyone's talking about a draft, and there is so much of opinion that there isn't a draft. There is a draft, but let's find out what's happening.
Indeed, the proposed constitution has become one of the most debated topics in the country, where many views are being expressed. However, whether these views are accurate or not is something sometimes cast in the doubt.
Well, commenting on views expressed by various parties on the Constitution, Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe emphasized that controversial statements which could bring division among communities should not be encouraged, especially in a background where a draft of the proposed Constitution has not yet been tabled in Parliament. And Minister Mano Ganesan and leader of the TNA R. Sambandhan stressed that it is only through the implementation of a new Constitution will Sri Lanka finally be able to find a permanent solution to the national question.
The National Thai Pongal Festival 2019 was held under the patronage of Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe yesterday. Minister of National Integration and Hindu Religious Affairs Mano Ganesan and leader of the TNA R. Sambandhan also participated in the official festival held at the temple trees.
We began our good governance government 4 years before with a lot of confidence. Obviously, we had a path 2-3 years before. In the Parliament House, we discussed reports of the steering committee which is supposed to be cooking up the new constitution. We submitted all the discussions, the experts' report to the Constitutional Assembly. Unfortunately, for major parties, the issue subject of constitution has been reduced to the level of a tug of war between election. Some are for elections, some are against elections. The new constitution would not only bring out a new pathway to this country, but also give us a permanent solution to the national crisis.
Sri Lanka needs a political solution that would ensure equal rights to Sinhalese, Tamils as well as Muslims. A new constitution must be passed or the country won't be able to move forward. That is the truth that must be accepted by all. There has been an unresolved issue for the last 70 years in this country only because of your personal political competition. This cannot be encouraged anymore. It would be a mistake if we allow it to happen any further.
In regard to the northern areas which had suffered through the war, I've had discussions with the members of parliament of the northern province recently. I spoke with the command of the army today, who assured me the private lands were all being released and you're looking at releasing some more lands. We are also now discussing to implement a program of development focusing on roads, focusing on building 10,000 more new houses in the area for to resettle people, of economic upliftment and development. අදේ රටේ ජන කොටස් එකතු වෙන අවස්ථාවේදී
There is a national campaign that's happening when all communities are coming together. The campaign is going forward with the message that the country will be divided by bringing in a new constitution. This is when not even a draft, let alone a proper constitution, is written. A steering committee consists of representatives from all political parties, and we have a responsibility of presenting all reports to the Constitutional Assembly and Parliament. All 6 of our final reports have been submitted that way. It is the Parliament and Constitutional Assembly that must take the next steps. Newspaper reported today that the power of the police will be divided to provincial levels, which is completely false. And a UPFA chief minister has said that more powers must be vested with the police, which is his right to say. But whether or not must we take his statement into account is our responsibility. Why would you write things like this when you haven't even read the reports? We need a political solution to ensure national reconciliation and remove the executive presidency.
විධායක ජනාධිපතිකම නැති කරන්න දේශපාලන විසමක් ඕනේ.
Meanwhile, the chairman of the Sri Lanka Pudujana Peramuna, Professor G.L. Piri, says that the draft constitution tabled in Parliament was done only to appease the Tamil National Alliance. Speaking at a media briefing today, Professor Piri also questioned the manner in which the draft was presented.
තාම ව්‍යවස්ථා කිටුම් පදක්වත් පාර්ලිමේන්තුවට ඉදිරිපත් කළා නැහැ කියලා නවින් දිසානායක ඇමතුමා ඊයේ කිව්වා.
Parliamentarian Navin Disanayake yesterday said that they have not even presented a draft of the new constitution in Parliament. This is wrong. The word draft is there in the English document which they presented in Parliament. But the word was not in the Sinhala and Tamil translations. This is being done to please TNA. If the UNP is to introduce a new constitution, it should be made available to the public. Elections should also be held.
තියෙනවා නම් එහෙනම් මේක ජනතාවට ඉදිරිපත් කරන්න මැතිවරණ පවත්වන්න. පළාත් සභා ඡන්දය ගැන මේගොල්ලෝ හැමදාම කියපු දේ.
This government always said that an obstacle to the provincial council election is the SLFP. President Maithripala Sirisena has a response for this yesterday. He said that provincial council elections will be held soon. We are ready for the elections and we will emerge victorious in all provinces except at the Northern Provincial Council.
සියලුම පළාත් සභා අපි ජයග්‍රහණය කරනවා.
සාමාන්‍ය අපි ඔය එක්සත් ජාතික පක්ෂය වගේ බැරි වැඩ කියන්නේ නැහැ.
We don't boast like the UNP. The TNA too will not be able to win the Northern Province. Vigneshwaran is ready to contest against the TNA. They have the remote control of the government.
ඕක කල් දාන්න. සම්පූර්ණම රිමෝට් එක අතේනේ.
UNP parliamentarian Field Marshal Sarath Fonseca says that if the United National Party is to emerge victorious in the next election, then many shortcomings within the party needs to be addressed. Speaking at a UNP membership drive in Mahara yesterday, the MP admitted that the government failed to fulfill the aspirations of the general public during the last 3 years, citing the last local authority polls as a warning that cannot be ignored.
We have a Prime Minister and a Cabinet of Ministers, but I don't see the democracy prevailing in this country. I feel like that they will be unable to remain in power for long and we have to make a huge sacrifice if we need to safeguard that victory. Mainly, the UNP leaders have to realize that we did a lot of mistakes. We had shortcomings. We failed to fulfill the aspirations of the people during the last 3 years. That's why people showed us a red light at the last local government elections. Therefore, we have to correct ourselves soon. We have only 1 year for the presidential election and 1.5 years for the general election. Therefore, we have to work closely with the people with more attention and dedication to strengthen the party during this period. Inspector General of Police PUJITH JAYASUNDARA arrived at the Government Analyst Department today to record voice samples required for an ongoing investigation regarding the alleged conspiracy to assassinate President Maithripala Sirisena and former Defence Secretary Gotabaya Rajapaksa.
Now, the alleged plot first came to light in September last year when the Director Operations of the Anti-Corruption Force, Namal Kumara, made a series of accusations against a senior police officer.
The Criminal Investigation Department launched an investigation into the revelation made by the Director Operations of the Anti-Corruption Force, Namal Kumara, on an alleged conspiracy to assassinate President and the former Defence Secretary. Former Deputy Inspector General of the Terrorism Investigation Unit Nalaka De Silva was also arrested and produced before the 4th Magistrate Court, following which he was remanded as his voice matched 123 out of 124 recordings handed to the CID by Namal Kumara. After being summoned by the Government Analysts Department, Inspector General of Police PUJITH JAYASUNDARA arrived at the department today to record his voice samples with regard to the ongoing investigation into the assassination plot.
මේක සම්බන්ධයෙන් පොලිසිය මාධ්‍ය ප්‍රකාශක තුමා සිල් විස්තර කළා. ඔබතුමාට කොහොමද මේ පරීක්ෂණ මේ කටයුතු සඳහා ඔබතුමා මොනවද කියන්නේ කොහොමද කටයුතු කරන්නේ? ඒ කියන්නේ ඔබතුමා කැඳවීම සම්බන්ධයෙන් අදාළ නැහැ. ඒ කියන්නේ නාමල් කුමාරට පිළිබඳව ඔබතුමාගේ අදහස නෑ සර් එහෙම නෙමෙයි අහන්නේ දැන් මේ පරීක්ෂණ සඳහා කැඳවීම සම්බන්ධයෙන් පොලිස්පතිවරයා හැටියට කොහොමද අපි පොඩ්ඩක් කරන්නේ? අයි ඔබතුමා මගේ යන්නේ නැද්ද?
The case filed against UPFA parliamentarian Vimal Veeravansa for the alleged illegal acquisition of assets and money worth over 75 million rupees has been postponed to 27th of March. The ruling was made by Judge Pradeep Hettiarachchi when the case was taken up before the Colombo High Court today. The High Court has recently issued an order granting permission to the defence to inspect the computer system of a certain private bank pertaining to the evidence of the case. However, the attorney representing the Bribery Commission informed the court today that the relevant private bank had refused to allow the defence to carry out the court order. Accepting a request made by the Bribery Commission, the High Court judge then issued another order to the relevant private bank. Further hearing of the case was subsequently postponed to the due date in March. Now, we have heard many reports on animal abuse. Most recently, a caged dog died of severe burn injuries when he was set on fire in a house in Negombo.
Mahesh, this sparked outrage on online platforms demanding the perpetrator's arrest. Last July, a leopard which was brutally beaten to death by a mob in Kilinochchi too sparked protest among many animal welfare groups. But what has the outcome of such incidents been?
Indeed. Now, legal consultants of the animal welfare legislation, attorney at law Senaka Veeraratna, who lamented the state of animal rights in Sri Lanka, pointed out that since the animal welfare bill was presented in Parliament in 2006, May of 2006, which was 12 years ago, no political will is seen to pass the legislation.
Well, speaking at the media briefing yesterday, Veeraratna also proposed that provisions too should also be introduced in the constitution to safeguard the rights of animals.
Historically, the rights of animals were preserved in Lankan society. The realm of animals was considered a microcosmic representation of human society in which all lives were respected. There was the Magatha rule, right, in our history, which is unique in histories all over the world, where 5 kings ruled the island under the Magatha rule, which effectively banned the killing and hunting of animals. The Sri Lanka Parliament does not support animal rights. They are deliberately slow. Animal welfare, animal rights are not in any election manifesto, as in contrast to countries like Australia, England, Europeans. But this tradition has yet to take root in Sri Lanka. And you know what the reason, the rationale for why animals are neglected in this country is because animals have no votes, animals have no money, animals have no clout. And the manner in which animals are observed, looked at, is on the basis that they are exploitable. The meat industry is very powerful in this country. They have bought the silence of our lawmakers. 6 years, from 2000 to 2006, we went through 6 versions. And 2006, Minister Dodangoda and Professor Marasinha, together with Lakshmi Gunasekara, took the bill, right, the final bill, to the then President Mahinda Rajapaksa. And since May 2006 to today, January, there is no light at the end of the tunnel. Now, the future of animal welfare rights is very important in this country. We should not only enact animal welfare bill, we should also think of introducing provisions in the constitution itself, because many other countries have done that, and we should not lag behind.
Now, Chairman of the Nidahas Sevaka Sangamaya, Janaka Vijayapathiratna, revealed that the national carrier Sri Lankan Airlines is paying 4 million rupees for an Airbus A330 daily, which has not been used for 6 months. Speaking at a media briefing today, the union went on to say that the present government illegally cancelled agreements signed by the former government to purchase an Airbus A350, adding further pressure to the debt-ridden national carrier.
The present government illegally cancelled the agreement signed by the former government to purchase Airbus A350, which eventually cost us a huge sum. It was cancelled while agreeing on many other conditions which proved to be disadvantageous for the country. As per one of its conditions, we had to get a 10-year-old Airbus 330. The airplane was brought to Katnayaka 6 months ago and has since not been in operation. Many repairs should be done in order to use this aircraft. This aircraft cost over 4 million rupees per day. Spare parts of this aircraft is being used for other planes. The cancellation agreement was signed by former CEO Suren Ratwatte with AirCap on the 4th of October 2016. The President informed Prime Minister the need for the Cabinet approval upon receiving information on the agreement on the 16th of October. They have informed the President and sought the Cabinet approval after the agreement was cancelled on October 4th. The day before cancelling the agreement, Ajit Dias, the then chairman of the Sri Lankan Airlines, emailed to the addresses of Ravi Karunanayake and Kabir Hashim, conveying the message that the cancellation was approved by the Prime Minister. It is clear that the cancellation was illegally carried out by the direct intervention of the Prime Minister through his good friend Ajit Dias, as the emails were also sent to personal accounts.
email පණිවිඩය යවලා තියෙන්නේ පෞද්ගලික email ලිපිනයන්ට.
In other local stories we have for you tonight, President's proposal to make the Tripitaka of Theravada Buddhism a World Heritage has received the approval of the Cabinet. According to the President's Media Division, the approval proposal would be later presented in Parliament. The Tripitaka was declared a national heritage at the historic Aluviharya in Matale under the patronage of President Maithripala Sirisena on the 5th of January this year. Meanwhile, a discussion was held at the Presidential Secretariat this morning to inform foreign diplomats of the proposals made by the President to make the Tripitaka a World Heritage. The discussion was led by Secretary to the President Udaya R. Seneviratna.
Well, vehicular traffic on the road from the New Kalani Bridge entry towards the Kalani-Thissa roundabout will be restricted from tomorrow onwards over maintenance activities. The route will be closed from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. to allow the installation of high-voltage power cables in the area.
The traffic police request all heavy vehicles en route from Katunayaka to Colombo on the expressway to use the Paliagoda interchange. With that, let's now have a look on some other stories making news across Sri Lanka.
6 shops were damaged in a fire at MALWANA recently. The fire brigade together with residents jointly doused the fire. Residents in Palagala and Karavilgala in Galnava engaged in a protest claiming that authorities have failed to provide solutions to the human-elephant conflict in the area. However, the residents called off the protest after UPFA MP Chantima Gamage and wildlife officials agreed to erect an electric fence in the area. Parents of ANULA VIDYALAYA engaged in a protest this morning accusing the governor of Western Province Azad Sali for threatening its school principal. A Dhamma school which was previously conducted within the premises of ANULA VIDYALAYA in Nugegoda was discontinued, using the school as its venue since the 6th of January. Parents further claimed that they do not want politicians to be involved in the issue.
Well, we take a short commercial break. We'll be back with more after this. Welcome back. Tourism has emerged as one of Sri Lanka's leading foreign exchange earners in recent years, with many international publications dubbing the country as one of the world's greatest tourist hotspots. The country was even named the world's top country to visit in 2019 this year by the travel magazine lonely planet.
Now, last year, the island drew 2.3 million tourists, an increase of 10.3% from an year earlier, and earned at least $3.5 billion in foreign exchange. However, last year, we were not able to achieve the government's ambitious target of bringing in 2.5 million tourists.
In an event in Colombo today, Minister of Tourism Development and Wildlife John Amarathunga attributed the failure to achieve this target to the recent political impasse. Minister Amarathunga, however, revealed that it is now the government's plan to attract at least 3 million tourists in 2019, making Sri Lanka one of the most sought-after destinations in the global tourism map.
The Department of Wildlife Conservation, in collaboration with Information and Communication Technology Agency of Sri Lanka today, launched a digital day entry e-permit service for country's national parks. The new service aims to reduce congestion and delays at park entrances, where visitors will be able to make pre-bookings online. E-permits will initially be available at the Vilpattu National Park, but will be available in other main national parks by the end of this year.
Sri Lanka is much dependent on tourism for its foreign exchange. At the moment, we are about the third highest foreign exchange earner in Sri Lanka. But our determination was to move up to number 2 by the end of this year. Unfortunately, last 3 months, we had a political upheaval, and as a result, our targets went haywire. However, this year, our determination will be successful. We are hoping to end up with a final total of around 3 million tourists coming to Sri Lanka in the year 2019.
Well, meetings between top Sri Lanka finance officials and the International Monetary Fund have been delayed amid heavy snow in the U.S. capital, Washington, D.C. Taking to Twitter, Economic Policy Minister Harsha De Silva said that the meeting has been rescheduled after bad weather closed the capital. The team was to meet IMF Managing Director Christine Lagarde to put the $1.5 billion extended fund facility program back on track with Sri Lanka. The delegation, led by Minister of Finance Mangala Samaravira, included Governor of the Central Bank Dr. Indrajit Kumaraswamy, Non-Cabinet Minister Dr. Harsha De Silva and Treasury Secretary Dr. R.H.S. Samarathunga.
In international business, China's exports unexpectedly fell the most in 2 years in December, while imports also contracted, pointing to further weakness in the world's second-largest economy in 2019 and deteriorating global demand. World stock markets too stumbled and commodities took a hit today after the stock contraction in Chinese trade. Exports from China fell 4.4% last month compared with the year before, while imports fell 7.6%. Meanwhile, other data released today showed the country's trade surplus with the US reached a record high in 2018. The gap between what is exports to and imports from the US rose by 17.2% to $323.32 billion last year. Softening demand in China is being felt around the world, with slowing sales of goods from iPhones to automobiles, prompting warnings from the likes of Apple and from Jaguar and Land Rover, which last week announced sweeping job cuts. The dismal December trade readings suggest China's economy may have cooled faster than expected last year in the year, despite a slew of growth boosting measures in recent months, ranging from high infrastructure spending to tax cuts. Some analysts had already speculated that Beijing may have to speed up and intensify its policy easing and stimulus measures this year after factory activity shrank in December.
Back at home, Sri Lankan shares recovered from a more than 6-week closing low hit on Friday to close slightly higher today, driven by consumer staples and financials. The ASPI closed in green, ending at 0.23% firmer at 5,981.02 as a result of price gains in counters such as distilleries, Hemas Holdings and Lion Brewery. Turnover was 1.5 billion rupees, well above last year's daily average of 834 million rupees. A similar behavior was witnessed in the S&P SL20. Crossings were witnessed in Hunnas Falls, Hotels, Commercial Bank, John Keel's Holdings and Lion Brewery, accounting for about 66% of the daily turnover today. Foreign investors in the meantime sold a net 418.9 million rupees worth of shares. They have been net sellers of some 14.6 billion rupees worth of stocks since the political impasse began on the 26th of October. Last year, the bond market in the meantime saw outflows of 77.9 billion rupees between the period from October 25th to January 9th.
Meanwhile, Sri Lanka's rupee closed weaker today in thin trade due to dollar demand from banks and importers. The rupee, which traded 182 rupees and 25 cents per dollar during the day, ended at 182.15 to 30 per dollar, compared with 181.90 or 182 in the previous session. Now, here's a look at how the Sri Lankan rupee traded against other currencies during the day today.
Well, as we all know, U.S. President Donald Trump is currently being heavily criticized over the longest partial government shutdown in the U.S. history. Senior U.S. Republican Senator Lindsey Graham even urged the U.S. president yesterday to temporarily reopen parts of the government shutdown that has lasted for more than 3 weeks to date. Since the shutdown on Friday, 800,000 employees missed their first salaries of the year, in fact.
Indeed, it is very crucial there. Now, amidst all of the internal chaos, however, Donald Trump seems to be busy with pressing matters pertaining to foreign relations as well. Now, he threatened Turkey with economic devastation if it attacks Kurdish forces in Syria following a planned pullout of U.S. troops, which has already prompted sharp criticism from the Turkish side.
In 2 tweets yesterday, U.S. President Donald Trump threatened to devastate Turkey economically if it attacks a U.S.-allied Kurdish militia in Syria. He also said that he did not want the Kurds to provoke Turkey either. U.S. forces have fought alongside the Kurdish militia, People's Protection Units in northern Syria against the Islamic State. Turkey, however, regards the group to be terrorist, straining relations between the two NATO allies. Last year, President Recep Tayyip Erdogan spoke angrily about American support for the group and vowed to crush it. Trump responded by imposing sanctions on 2 of President Erdogan's ministers and raised tariffs on Turkish metal exports, helped push the Turkish lira to a record low in August. Amid the diplomatic row between the two countries, the local currency Turkish lira has slid as much as 1.6% to 5.5450 against the US dollar.
Well, tomorrow British parliamentarians will finally be casting their judgment on Theresa May's much criticised Brexit deal. Ahead of the vote, the British Prime Minister is expected to make a last-ditch effort to convince the rebellious parliamentarians to back her Brexit divorce deal, warning them that Britain's exit from the European Union is now in peril from politicians seeking to thwart it.
Now, the future of the UK's March 29th exit from the EU is deeply uncertain, as Parliament is likely to vote down May's deal tomorrow. Facing the deepest crisis in British politics for at least half a century, Theresa May will use a speech in the Leave-supporting city of Stoke-on-Trent in central England to say that MPs blocking Brexit is now a more likely outcome than leaving without a deal.
May warned MPs yesterday that failing to deliver Brexit would be catastrophic for democracy. As part of the effort to get the deal approved by the British Parliament, the EU is due to set out some assurances in a choreographed exchange of letters today. Brussels has repeatedly said, however, that the deal itself cannot be renegotiated. Well, sports news is on the other side of this break. Stay with us.
In sports, we start off with football here at home. St. Joseph's College Maradana emerged victorious in the Under-18 Division Schools Football Championship for the third consecutive time after a closely contested battle in the final against Royal College at the Sukadasa Stadium yesterday. Now, during the halftime, both teams failed to score a single goal, with Royal College in particular missing their 5 free kicks.
Now, keeping the game alive 5 minutes into the second half, the Josephians scored their first goal, while the Royalists also fought back to kick their first goal in the 58th minute of the match. Joes rode back for another goal in the very last minute of the game, avoiding a tie, ending the match 2-1.
Well, the build-up to this year's tournament has been dominated by the news that Andy Murray will retire from professional tennis with this year, with his month's tournament possibly being his last. Murray showed that his hip injury has not dulled his fighting qualities as he battled for 4 remarkable hours before failing to a 5-set loss against Roberto Bautista Agut in what could be his last professional match at the Australian Open.
Now, meanwhile, Rafael Nadal progressed earlier in the day with a straight-set victory over the impressive wildcard James Duckworth. With that, let's take a look at some first-round action at the Australian Open.
Former world number 1 Andy Murray produced an incredible fight back in what might have been his final match, but eventually lost in 5 sets to Roberto Bautista Agut in the Australian Open first round. The Briton, who is hoping to play at Wimbledon, battled brilliantly before losing 6-4, 6-4, 6-7, 6-7, 6-2. Murray had the Melbourne Arena crowd roaring as he took the 3rd and 4th sets. Earlier in the day, 17-time Grand Slam champion Rafael Nadal overcame James Duckworth in straight sets to reach the second round of the Australian Open.
Nadal. New boards, please.
Spanish second seed Nadal saw off the Australian 6-4, 6-3, 7-5 in 2 hours 16 minutes on Rod Laver Arena despite a stubborn finish from Duckworth. Meanwhile, South African 5th seed Kevin Anderson also progressed by beating France's Adrian Mannarino 6-3, 5-7, 6-2, 6-1. The 32-year-old, who has reached the 4th round at Melbourne Park on 3 occasions, served 14 aces but made 38 unforced errors as he won his opening match in 2 hours and 53 minutes.
Well, that's all the news on First at 9 for tonight. Thank you very much for joining us. If you did miss any of our stories, do not forget to log on to www.otherderana.lk or follow us on our social media sites. I'm Indira Yamuat.
And I'm Mahesh Johnny. Have a very good night.